At this point, this is the only training, off-road training or adventure training class or course that I knew of. Like I was Googling, but I don't think I had the right search words for it. So I did this class. Now, with this class, it was pretty cool because I learned a lot and I became a whole lot more confident. There was, I was nervous as heck when I showed up because I'm like, do I even belong here? Um, Most of the people, again, were on BMWs, a bunch of, I'm going to call them white males between 50, 60-year old. And even the owner of Rawhide, Jim Hyde, said that's the normal demographic of people who were riding adventure motorcycles. So I was not comfortable. And I actually thought about quitting. Like, you know what, maybe I'll just go somewhere else because there was no one that looked like me. It was supposed to be a women's class, and they didn't have enough women to show up. So
Wow.
then it was all men.
But
Um,
I could imagine, if you don't mind, I could imagine when you said that demographic, I could imagine, because obviously people are doing adventure biking, you're probably talking about people who have kids or grown or pretty close to grown. People kind of have a little bit more latitude as far as PTO on their jobs. And the most important thing, MONEY.
yeah.
Is that fair?
And then that's what they said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here I am, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm here. But this guy, one of the trainers that worked for Rawhide, he doesn't work for Rawhide anymore. He works here in Austin, and I'm actually going to join him for an event coming up soon, Touratech Rally. But this guy came over to me, and he's like, "You belong here." And I know Harleys because nobody else wanted to touch a Harley. And he goes,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, look at this." And he adjusted my levers so that I can stand up on the bike properly and have the right angles. Um, and he helped me get through that because him actually recognizing that I felt like I didn't belong in this place. Um, and then him saying, "Hey, I know Harleys. We've done this. We did the training." So that was helpful, and that was a confidence builder. And the reason I point that out is because usually when we're getting ready to do something wild and crazy, we go ask somebody who's done it. I had nobody to ask because I didn't know anyone at that point who did it.
Yeah, that's true. Uh, YouTube was your friend. I can guarantee that.
Oh my
Probably.
gosh! If you
Yeah.
go to the next slide.
Okay.
So I had fun. This was my thing. Every day after work, or every day, I was on YouTube. I was Googling whatever I can do. So I Googled this, how to prepare for an adventure or Pan America Highway. And there's this guy. He's pretty cool. He's got on shorts and he's jumping up and down, and he jumps, and then he's got these adventure boots on. I'm like, okay, I need adventure boots. Then he jumps again. He's got this adventure jacket on. I'm like, okay, I need adventure
Okay.
jacket. So each time he's jumping, I'm like Googling, like, okay, and I'm looking at reviews because
Yeah.
this stuff is expensive.
Yeah. I'm kind
Um,
of wondering. I'm kind of wondering. Is that where we get the jump from?
no, no,
Your
no, no.
signature jump move?
No, I had to jump before then.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No, 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 no.
Okay. So I'm
He-
seeing. I'm seeing a Garmin,
Yep.
and I think on your ride, there's no substitute. You know, we do our Yonder rides when we're in America or United States. Typically, we can get away with a cell phone
Mhm.
as far as our GPS equipment. That ain't happening where you were going. Am I correct?
Yeah, right. But you,
Okay.
you, well, you can. I mean, there's adventure
Uh,
riders. There's some adventure riders like bougie adventure riders who need all of this. But then there's
yeah.
some. I'm going to call them Hoka Hay, since we
Yeah.
just saw the Hoka Hay riders who are like, we don't need any of this stuff.
Wow.
So I needed it.
Okay.
Let
So if
me
you
let
don't,
me. Mhm.
are we gonna break down the equipment?
Yep.
Okay. Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right. So from a bike standpoint, there's hard bags and soft bags. And if you ask adventure riders, you're going to get probably a 50-50 split about which ones are better. I bought hard bags right off the bat. I was traveling solo. or I was planning to travel solo because I've asked a few people if they wanted to ride with me, but this ain't no, hey, I'm riding to the corner store ride. This is, hey, we're going to take a few months and go do some things. So to do that, I wanted to make sure that all of my stuff was safe. Obviously, if you got a thief, it's not all safe, but for the casual folks, it is safe. So I went with the hard bags. I own soft bags as well, and I never put them on my bike. From a boot standpoint, or from an adventure gear standpoint, the guy that was doing the jumping, he recommended some boots, and I have some. Right now I'm wearing CDs, but in this, I forget which ones they are, Toucan 7s. But when I did training, the bike fell on my foot with these boots on, and I couldn't move. Like I was in a position that if I turned my body one way or another, my foot or my ankle would crack. So I'm
Wow.
laying there, and a guy picks the bike off me, and I stand up. I don't have a bruise. Nothing's broken. I can't even tell that the whole weight of that bike was laying on my ankle. So those are the boots that I chose. Those are the boots that I rode on my tour. And then there's
Now
the
those boots, they're designed to be able to protect your shins, your ankles,
Mhm.
obviously your
And
toes
they're
and your
really,
heels.
really thick plastic.
Yeah.
Most of them are waterproof.
Does
Um,
Alpine make that boot?
I think so, yeah,
Yeah, I think
Alpine.
that's the Alpine boot. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
Alpine Toucan 7.
Okay.
But it looks big and goofy, so I don't like wearing them when I'm
It
wearing
does look
my
big.
other
Yeah,
bike.
they look huge.
But now with that bike falling on my ankle, I know I'll never ride my bike without them again.
So what about say now, okay, the jungles of Central America, South America, when you're dealing with water and stuff like that, are they water resistant boots? Are they pretty good with that?
Yeah, I don't ever remember on the trip my feet being wet.
Wet. So
So
on the opposite side, what about when you're getting up in the cold?
yeah, they're very comfortable.
Okay.
The worst part of them is when you go off on an adventure, you park your bike and you go hiking somewhere and you got this big old boot on.
Oh, I can
So
imagine. Yeah.
I learned to pack my tennis shoes close. Most of the time I kept my boot on in case I stepped on something or there was something I wasn't expecting. So it protects you very well.
Nice. Nice.
Now as a woman looking for adventure boots, you try to look for something that's going to fit your foot, the way you want. But if you want something that's in a women's size or style, then it's going to have pink on it. And I'm not a pink person, so I had to buy the men's boot. But I think they're doing better now at putting more women's clothes out there. The same thing for the adventure gear. So I have Climb. As I went through this process, this was probably one of the most painful parts for me as far as money, because each one of these, I call them monkey suits, costs about $1,500.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I have 4.
Wow.
Because the first one, the one you see in the picture here, when I was riding to Prudhoe Bay, the leg burned on my pipe, so I could have still worn it, but I don't like the colors. There's not a whole lot of good selections for women riders. I would never choose these colors. I look like a fireman. But then I tried another one, which is the Revit, which is the Harley. So it's the competitor to Climb. And this one it's a lot thicker. I don't know if it's a lot safer, but the material is safer. But it's so thick that I knew I was going through heat and then cold. So I'd prefer to layer up versus having one thing that was just always going to keep me nice and warm or hot. So I went with the lighter one, which is the Climb. It has more vents on it. And I think you could probably find the same thing with Revit. So I'm not endorsing Climb as the one to get. I think you can do it probably with any of them, but for me, it was having the vents and being able to still stay safe, because I didn't want to ride on roads that I'm not familiar with just a t-shirt on.
Does that suit? Looks like it has the reinforced elbows and shoulders.
Yeah, they have different CE ratings, and they're I don't remember what the CE rating for the Climb one is, but it's right under the one that I have for Revit. So I give away a little bit of the reinforcement on the Climb, but I wasn't just off-roading either. So a lot of this gear is made for you're really going to spend a lot of time off-roading, where I was casually off-roading when necessary. But I layered. So I have that, and then I have a puff jacket that I put underneath, and then I have the what do you call it? The gear you put on underneath that, which is your base layers. And I have 3 base layers. I have a light base layer, which is really thin and for when you're in warm weather, but I always make sure that I wear it. And I have a medium one for when it's cooler. And then I have they're like 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. So the 3.0 is for the really cold weather. So I don't wear heated pants. I do have heated jacket. But it has to be really, really cold for me to put my heated jacket on it. So I go with the other layers first. And then you have to peel those off sometimes, right?
Right.
So that's what I did from a adventure gear standpoint. It is confusing when you start, there's so many options out there. So it's really confusing, and it costs a lot of money. What advice I would say for anybody who's doing this is don't go out there and spin first. Try them. If you like them, get what you like. And make sure that it's flexible for whatever conditions you're planning to ride in. The other thing is the inReach. The inReach is I have the big one, so you can get different size ones. You don't have to have inReach. You could have Spot. There's all kinds of different emergency tracking. But what it does is it allows people, I send them a link, and then they can track me wherever I'm at. And that's important because when I'm in the US, I'm using Glimpse or something like that. And you don't always have signal. So the Garmin inReach, I had signal everywhere with that. It also has the big one has a mapping feature. So if I wanted to put my map in there, I could follow that map. Now, I never did that. One, it's too small. 2, I already have my GPS and my Google Maps on my phone. So I never used it for that. For me, it was more of a security, because I also have the MedJet. So, and directions. It says, if I'm in an accident and I can't speak for myself and this button goes off, then take me back to here. And I put any city, Texas, which is not too far out of the realm, right? Because you're going south, and Texas is a bordering state. So,
okay, if you don't mind, okay, you said that's a MedJet. Okay, and what this MedJet does is
it's like
whatever you put a message in there, and then it translated it into whatever language for a person who finds it that can understand.
Yeah, actually, there's 2 different things. So this thing is an emergency. So it has a button on the side, on the right side, you see. If I press that button, that instantly signals the people that I have as emergency contacts, as well as the company. I don't know who the company is, but it tells them that there's an emergency.
Okay.
Immediately, they'll text me. They'll call them. They'll text me and ask me if I'm okay. And then based on my response or non-response, then they activate.
I see that as a must-have. When you're doing that kind of ride, that's a must-have.
Yeah, I agree. What I like about the big one is it gives me the insurance that if everything else fails, I still have a map. And if everything else fails, if I press that button, somebody's going to come looking for me. Now, I may be so far away that it takes a while for them to find me, but they know where I'm at. And then the battery life is really long as well. But I can also, with this one, it's a two-way communicator. So I can say, I'm okay, or whatever else I want to say. Like, if I want to say, I was going to say I'm bleeding or whatever, I can type that in and then the people know. And I'll tell you, I'll talk a little bit about this later, but yeah, I'll talk a little bit about this later when I actually had to use it on the trip. The other thing is this Garmin Zumo XT. This is my favorite toy for the bike. And it's my favorite toy because it's not dependent on the cell service or the Wi-Fi. So I always have connection, but it also has this feature that's called Up Ahead, Cities Ahead. And so it tells me what are the cities. So I can look and say, okay, my next city is going to be, 100 miles or 50 miles, or so it gives me an idea of how far between kind of major cities. But it also has a feature that shows me how far it is to my next gas station, my next restaurant, or my next hotel. And then I can click onto it, and then it gives me all of the gas stations. Or if I click onto the restaurants, it'll give me all of the restaurants. So that is on my bike constantly. So I use that primary for looking for gas, as well as mapping, looking for gas, looking for hotels at night, because I didn't prearrange all of my hotels. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I look in the next few slides. I think we have some of the things that I use to plan.
Okay.
But a watch out with the Garmin XT Zumo is, before I left, I downloaded the South America maps, but the South America maps don't actually include all of South America. So sometimes you have to buy individual maps, and I couldn't find individual maps in the US, but even before I left the US, I wouldn't have known to look for them until I just didn't have maps while I was on the road. Like in Ecuador, I didn't have maps. Certain parts of, I think it was Guatemala, I didn't have maps. Certain parts of Peru, I didn't have maps.
And
So
you just bought them locally once
yeah,
you got there.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Well, that was in Peru
why couldn't
because
you just buy them online and then upload them?
they don't. Yeah, so I didn't so I did buy it online before I left, but I didn't realize that these were not a part of the South America maps.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
the Garmin South America maps had missing pieces.
Okay.
So that's key.
Yeah, that's a detail.
Yeah,
That's a detail. Yeah.
which is one of the reasons why I'm really happy that I still had my phone and my Google Maps, because Google Maps is, even when you don't have signal, Google Maps is extremely helpful because you can download your maps offline. So each night before I got on the bike, I would download the next day's route so that I can access it offline. So if I
Okay.
didn't have signal, I still knew where I was going, even though I had my Garmin. So that I had them both. So, it gives me, most of the time they matched, but there were times where they were different, and then I'd investigate why they were different and make a decision on what I want to do.
Okay.
But if you are traveling, I would suggest you do not leave without any of these. Those are all very essential to my ride, and I personally would not have felt comfortable leaving the
Huge.
house without
I
them.
don't see any way to get around it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and honestly, I still use most of it when I'm in the U.S. So.
Okay.
But don't go buy 4 adventure gear. Buy one that you like.
Yeah. True. True.
That's a lot of money.
True. Yeah. Only thing I can see that you can get away with. Now, no, you gotta have all that.
Yeah,
Maybe the climb suit, but even then with the terrain and brush, if you're wearing regular clothes or whatever, you're ripping things off and
I mean, so there were days where I had like jeans,
Mm-hmm.
motorcycle jeans. They
Yeah.
have a little more. They're not nearly as protective as your outer gear, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it gives you just a little more
Yeah.
protection, but it's not nearly like your adventure gear. While I was on the ride, when we got on the road, I had my adventure gear. I don't care if it was 110 or
Mm-hmm.
20. My adventure gear was on.
I
So
would
I
have
see.
it too.
I mean, and you could do leather.
Mm-hmm.
You would look really weird in South America, all leathered up. But
And, you
I
know,
mean,
and we're sitting there talking because, and I'm guilty of it, man. So you start thinking South America, you thinking hot all the time. But doing this ride, and I'm sure you're going to discuss it, as we move on into the show, it wasn't always hot now.